let's take a look at how to calculate how much money you would have if you invest it under compound interest. The terms that we're looking at today are $10,000 being put in for 4 years at 7%. And there are two possibilities. Most of the time we're going to use this formula, which is A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT power. A is the amount you're going to have at the end. I think of A standing for after. P is the amount of money you put in at the beginning. P stands for principal, but you can also remember that by thinking of the word pre or before. It's just the number 1 here. This is an R. That's your interest rate. When you're talking about interest rate, we're talking about putting it into the formula as a decimal. So here, since the interest rate is 7%, R would be 0.07. You always want to take the decimal. When it's in percent form, move it 2 places to the left. T is the amount of time you're going to leave the money in the bank account. In this case, it would be 4 years. And N stands for the number of compounding periods per year. So in our example here, if it's compounded semi-annually, you have to ask yourself, how many times a year is that? And that will be twice a year, semi-annually. So that would mean that N is 2. If it said monthly, for example, then N would be 12, because that's 12 times a year. Or if it said quarterly, then N would be 4. Normally we use this formula anytime they say compounded certain amount of time. The only exception is you're going to use this formula, A equals P e to the RT, if they say compounded continuously. And that's referring to the compounding happening basically continuously. Not every minute, not every second, not every tenth of a second, but imagine a computer in the background calculating your interest all the time, every tenth of a second, every hundredth of a second, every millisecond, and giving you the most possible interest. So let's do 2 examples. The first one in A, we'll use this formula, and then we'll use another one that uses this one. All right, so we want to do, first of all, compounded semi-annually. So we're going to use the first formula, and that would mean that A is equal to, principal was $10,000, that's how much you put in, times 1 plus R is the interest rate. Remember, that's going to be 0.07 over N, which is 2 twice a year. And then the power is 2 for N. Ooh, kind of messy. Let me fix that a little bit. Okay, and then we want to have a 2, and then a T is how many years you leave it in, so that's 4. Now, part of these problems is making sure that you can put it in your calculator correctly. So I would put this part in first, 1 plus 0.07 over 2. If you type it in your calculator, it would just be like that, using the divided by. And it should give you 1.035. So make sure that's displayed on your screen. And then once you've done that, you can rewrite it if you like. We still have that power. 2 times 4 is 8, so let's just put 8 there. The next part would be to enter in 1.035 to the 8th power, and then at the very end we're going to times by 10,000. So it would look like this on your calculator. 1.035 is probably already on your screen. You could just leave it there. Use your exponent button, might look like this, to the 8th, and then times 10,000. And then just press equals, and you should get the amount at the end of 4 years in your bank account is $13,168.09. It says round to the nearest cent, so you definitely want to double check and make sure you're rounding correctly. Let's also take a look at what it would look like with continuous compounding. If they say, for example, compounded continuously, that word has to appear in the problem, then you're going to use this formula instead. A equals P e to the RT power. So let's use the same requirements as the last one, except for continuously this time. So we're going to start off with $10,000. E, of course, is the exponential function, so you just leave it as itself and you'll have an E button on your calculator. And then to the RT power, which would be 0.07 times 4, because 4 years. Now, putting this into your calculator correctly, first of all, do 0.07 times 4 and see what you get, 0.28. And then you're going to have to do 10,000 times e to the 0.28. But again, we're going to do this part first. The exponents always come before the multiplication. And remember, you have to press second in order to get the e function. So it's going to be second or shift, depending on your calculator. And then your e to the x feature, which, if you're not sure where that is, it's above the ln key. Second e to the x, 0.28. And then once you get that number, you can go ahead and press times 10,000 at the end. So if it works out right, you should get A equals 13231.298, and I'm not rounding yet because you have to be very careful here. If the third digit is 5 or higher, you have to round up. So since they want to the nearest cent, that would be $13,231.29, rounds up to 30 cents. Hope that helps.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.